अभी ये शायद बोलना भी नहीं होगा। मैं भी छुट्टी पे जाऊंगा। क्या बोलेंगे बैकआउट? इस पे मकड़े लगते हैं।
नहीं दिखे तो शाम को बुलाते हैं, अगर नहीं दिखे तो पहले स्टेशन पे, ठीक है? चालू नहीं होता,
बटन
चालू है।
डाला कोई। हाँ
अरे मैम पर हेलो।
Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you back to the post-lunch sessions. Once again, we take this moment to express our gratitude to all our partners, collaborators, and well-wishers who have strengthened this journey with their trust and support. Title sponsor, PCBL Chemical Limited. Gold sponsor, School of Design Thinking and Pataka Group. Silver sponsor, KEI Wires and Cables, Harmony Foundation, and Damodar Valley Corporation. Co-sponsors, SBI, Axis Bank, and WBPDCL. Knowledge partners, Service Setu Academics and Primus Books. Another esteemed sponsors, GRSE, AON, Vadilal Ice Creams, Vanilla Sky Cafe, Flaunt Jewelry, 2Yum, Spartan Security Service, Club Amre, Anmol Biscuits, Shubhami Biopharma, Supermode, Coconut Wala, and Leora Bell. We are delighted to commence the spotlight session by the School of Design Thinking. For this session, we are honored to have with us today Dr. Anbu Rathinavel, co-founder and head, School of Design Thinking.
This session is designed to help us look at management and leadership through the lens of design thinking, a human-centered iterative approach that blends imagination with practical impact. It is my privilege and honor to introduce our esteemed dignitary, Dr. Anbu Rathinavel. Dr. Anbu Rathinavel is a visionary leader at the intersection of technology, design, and human development. As the co-founder of the School of Design Thinking and Chief Design Officer at Intellect Design Arena, he champions a unique philosophy that balances Eastern mindfulness with Western cognitive science to solve complex challenges in business and life. He heads the world's first 8012 FinTech Design Center in Chennai, where he has been instrumental in launching collaborative, human centric initiatives that foster a universe of possibilities within the professional ecosystem. Dr. Rathinavel's 25-year career spans high-stakes environments. He played significant role in architecting of the copyrighted design the thinking approach, a mindset transformative framework adopted by government bodies, global corporations, and prestigious academic institutions. A researcher at heart, Dr. Ratina Vale holds a PhD in artificial intelligence from Ohio University. He is serving as an executive coach and visiting faculty at ISB Hyderabad and a visiting faculty at IIM Calcutta. Through his Life Design Lab, he empowers young adults and corporate leaders to master emotional intelligence and cultural values. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rathinawel with a round of applause as we invite him on the stage.
Hi, thank you.
We now request Professor Rachna Chattopadhyay, Dean Academics, IMI Kolkata, to kindly come up on stage and felicitate Dr. Anbu Rathinawel.
Sure. Okay. This is really nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, we are truly honored to have you with us today. The stage is all yours, so share your insights with us and take us to the world of design thinking.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I should say it's a great honor to be here in front of all the accomplished academic leaders here. And I've been hearing many perspectives and thoughts from them throughout the panel discussion. Interesting that the panel discussion kind of went towards mindset as one of the focus, right? In the morning before we stopped for lunch. I think it's very apt because that's where our journey has taken in terms of looking at things from a mindset perspective, right? It's good lunch. Post lunch, they normally say it takes about 30 to 45 minutes for the lunch to start working. So I'll have to try and see that I should keep you all up and awake and interested. So from the mindset, our journey, like I said, started with design thinking in about 2007, 2008 timeframe, where we realized that our expertise was coming in between innovation and trying to do new things, right? And then we were very good at saying that, okay, we have expertise in this, we are doing great. So we should even go to greater heights. And then we realized that was actually coming in between. A very short story, 1978, United Airlines 173 flight flown by a pilot who had 25 years of experience in flying a same aircraft, the McDonnell Douglas DC-8, New York to Portland, Oregon, and unfortunately, he crashed it in the woods just before landing in Portland, Oregon. The investigation ended up saying pilot error, where his expertise actually blinded him. He thought that one of the landing gears light did not go on. Out of three, two were on and one didn't. He was very sure that something wrong with the landing gear, while the co-pilot and those days the flight engineers, they kept on saying no, all the three should be down, but keep watching the fuel level. So he asked, the story goes as in, you can Google up, it's a very interesting story on how expertise blinds leadership. He takes two go-arounds, and the third go-around, both the engines fail for low fuel. Even then he was saying there is something wrong with the engine, right? I know this engine and there is something wrong. He couldn't accept that we actually ran out of fuel, right? They unfortunately lost 10 passengers, but till date, a classic case study of how expertise can blind us. And that is exactly what happened to us. When we actually took what Stanford said about design thinking, came and absolutely applied it ditto as is, and then we failed. Then we went on this journey, and what you see here as a title is not a typo. It's actually the framework we finally arrived at saying, can we look at design thinking as a mindset? Can we look at innovation as a mindset, borrowing a lot of those inspiration from Silicon Valley itself? As we all know, I mean, leaders here, you have studied a lot more than us in terms of Silicon Valley and its success. One of them is fail fast, fail often. And the other one is innovation as a mindset, not just a mere process. So we followed process, we failed, Then we moved to design thinking is an innovation. And along the way, one of the things that happened to us, which we are very, very happy, is if design thinking is for problem solving, right, which is what it started with by Stanford, can we solve any problem that we face today? Not just product design innovation, product innovation, and service innovation. Can we solve any? And that is where this framework actually helped us to solve many things, including rural areas problems, including policy design, including leadership design and whatnot. I'll share a few examples as we go along. Right. So obviously we started our journey. So this is a familiar Venn diagram for all of us, right? In terms of desirability is there, feasibility is there. Unless we zero in on making our solution viable, it is not going to reach to the larger audience, or it is not going to make any impact. Which is what we know, and that's exactly what helped Steve Jobs to get his iPad out and try and kill the desktop market and all that. And then we followed another one from Roger Martin, who was at the Rotman School of Business. How do you scale a business? By bringing it down to an algorithm state. A classic example it gives is McDonald's runs on an algorithm today. McDonald's has an algorithm of how to make everything, right? From fries to burgers to whatnot. That's why we see any McDonald's we cross the globe, it looks the same in terms of the process and the steps that they follow. This helped us. But then again, we were not seeing the impact that we wanted. So we came up with our own design approach, right? For design thinking. How do we identify the unstated requirements, unstated needs of the end users? Nobody put a gun to Steve Jobs' head and said, come up with an iPhone. He observed the patterns and anti-patterns, things that were going wrong with the users, right? People trying to carry too many things which runs on the same technology. I'm going on a vacation carrying a address book, I'm carrying a digital camera, I'm carrying a music, and I'm carrying my phone. Why can't I put them all together? Several things when we look at the unstated requirements. One of the ones that I remember very well, 2015, we had a heavy unexpected floods in Chennai, which almost brought us to our knees for several days, right? So some of us friends, we were trying to help the villagers on the, near our area by giving them food, right? Go with the knee-deep water, more than knee-deep water, go keep handing out food and things like that. And then to our surprise, people were saying, we don't want food because everybody is giving us food. The first thing that comes to our mind is, oh my God, they are struggling for food. Let's give them food. They're saying, in Tamil, they were saying, Tambi, inga paarupa, evlo waste up the food. They were just telling us, look at the food that's going waste. And then we asked them, what do you want? We want water. We don't have clean water to drink. We want milk. There are pregnant ladies who can't, get access to milk. Nobody thought of that, right? That's a pure, either we call it anti-pattern of things that have gone wrong or the unstated needs, or we call that as a blind spots, right? Which we didn't know until we actually jumped in and be there with the tons of food. And they were saying, what we need is food. Give us something else that nobody is doing. This approach helped us to get into solving different problems. And now that our topic being sustainable solution, right? So we were working with few of the goodwill, good-hearted souls that are working on impacting rural India, right? In the name of NGOs, social sector, social leaders, they wanted to bring in a lot more impact to the lives of the people. So when we had we also jumped in and started helping. And then we realized a couple of things. One of the big blind spots where something great is happening, let's say in a Digambarpur here in West Bengal, right? Someone has cracked something. And a similar problem is being faced by another farmer down south somewhere. They don't have access to the information. The success of something having been implemented in Digambarpur, they don't have access to that there. And we realized there is no platform for them to interact and share. Okay. So when we got them together, you'll be very surprised. So one of them where they were working on Gandhian movement for nearly 15 years, right? They put their heart and soul into it. And then the one simple question which stunned them, they didn't have an answer, is how many times have four of you met with each other the last 15 years? They said zero. Because we are so busy trying to do what we are passionate about. And that is when we got 70, 80 leaders into one room, spent 3 days trying to see, are we trying to do too many things to the same sector again and again and again? What else can happen, right? This is exactly, we came up with, okay, before that, let me just take you through this one little framework that we had come up with, or an acronym called LORD, which helped us to identify those unstated needs, the blind spots and anti-patterns, which is obviously listening to them to understand, as Stephen Covey says in his book, right? Seek to understand than to be understood. So listening to understand what is that's going on in their lives. Observing empathetically, not, this is where, like I said, our expertise was blinding us. When we were listening with the filter that we know what your problem is. Right? When we were observing what we wanted to see, now what was in, not what was in front of us. And researching a lot more, and finally dialoguing, right? I mean, I'm standing in a B school, so we don't have to talk about the debate and dialogue, right? We all know. So it's purely for us, the focus is what is right and not who is right. So we can all sit and debate, but that's different. So focusing on dialoguing to understand what is right. And this helped us to come up with a framework for community development in the country. Right? Today, applying design thinking, we had come up with this framework, which is a sustainable solution that is now adopted in many panchayats and villages. And we are also part of many of the 110 clusters that Honorable Prime Minister has identified for the development, bringing back the Panchayat Raj back into the forefront. I know this is very small, so you can always, I'll leave my contacts or the website. You can go there and see a lot more details about it. This is just to give you how we kind of started with at the core, the sense of belonging for the individual in a village and panchayat. You can go give them education and come back, right? You can go give them money for something, right? In the morning, we saw it is not about money, right? And Dr. Moha Banerjee did allude to that fact when she was giving the overview, right? It's not about money, it's much beyond that. So we came up with this, the catalyst wheel, right? It has multiple layers of then, therefore, what do we focus on, right? Education, health, then we go focus on governance, we focus on sanitization. Then we looked at it, there were so many social sector leaders who are working a lot more on healthcare and education. Anything you say, they are into education. So many of them pumping in more than money, the time, right? Their effort. And which is where then we thought the design aptly came out this, and this is what is followed to say, how do we actually connect, celebrate, and catalyze things that happens across, right? And we feel this to be a classic example of coming up with a sustainable solution. And how did we arrive at that? We had come up with the 3 laws. So when I said we failed, right, and how did we kind of go back and got our act together so we can actually successfully do things, is along the way we came up with a few frameworks and laws for ourselves that will keep reminding us, we all start with customer is in the middle. We all start with the end user is the focus. And when we start implementing things, somewhere we lose track of them, and then they come back into a forefront at the end. Then we realize, oh my God, this is not what they wanted. Right? So we came up with the 3 laws. We're saying less is more. Right? If you look at the catalyst wheel, if you look at the focus areas, right, there is education. Then we are looking at how many people are working on education. Can we apply less is more there? We don't want to bombard all the school children with the multiple things there. Then they feel overwhelmed, right? Then last 2% equals 200%. A classic example from a technology point of view is iPhone versus any other phone, a OnePlus or a Samsung. Why is that people are still willing to pay the premium for an iPhone? Because it has that 2% that other phones does not provide. 98% of the things are same. But it is just that the last 2% that is very, very important. That's our focus. And then we came up with what's called theory of prioritization, which is can we look at prioritization as not linear but exponential, right? It's not about 1, 2, 3, 4. Can it be 10, 100, and 1,000? Therefore, my entire attention goes to the 1,000-gram things first. Then we'll come back to the 110, right? So this law helped us in applying in many areas. And this is also part of our the mindset, the design, the thinking framework. So as I mentioned to you earlier, we had applied in many different areas, academics a lot, because that's where we also learn, right? And in our journey, we have always taken this thing of we'll continue to be learning forever. There will always be blind spots. We are working with AICTE. We are actually their partners in terms of coming up with the innovation ecosystem design. Right, innovation is happening. Ecosystem people claim that they have innovation and incubation cell in the universities and colleges. But then why is that some places things are great and other places they are not? So we are working very closely with. We recently had sessions for about 800 different innovation incubation center heads across 26 locations. We have what's called a cartographic view, like a periodic table equivalent. If you visualize a periodic table equivalent for a ecosystem, what are the multiple blocks that should be there to claim that you have the best ecosystem for innovation? So we are closely working with them to not only train these innovation ambassadors and the leaders, but also evaluate where they are, that level of maturity. And right here in this town, we have a 3-credit course that we have done. This 3rd year completed, starting the 4th year now with IIM Kolkata on how do we apply design thinking to come up with addictive product design. Designing product and service is great, but how can we twist it a little bit and say, how can I apply design thinking as a mindset to come up with a product that my users get addicted to? We all get addicted to certain products, be it Spotify, or some people are addicted to Amazon. I'm sure they have plenty of surplus money to keep spending, but I have known people getting addicted to Amazons and things like that. But how do we apply design thinking to come up with that, right? It is not only sustainable, but it becomes beyond viable to being addictive. Then right here in this campus, we have done it 2 years. We are actually completing the next week. We will be completing the evaluation for the students. We have taken the entire group of students with a full 3-credit course on applying design thinking for rural innovation. One is to be in this auditorium and teach them everything, which we do. And then we take them to the Digambarpur Panchayat. They spend a whole day, morning to evening, go around, same thing, observe, understand the unstated needs of the villagers, observe. And some of the students last year, they had come up with a very interesting thing. One group came up with, you know what, they have so much of coconut. They use the coconut, but rest of the things, the residues and other things of coconut can also be a business model, right? And then we have a CSR called Mission Samriddhi that is trying to jump in and see if we can make that as a viable business for them, right? So that is something that we have successfully done. With SRM University, the one in South India, some of you would know, right? Which, with a very large base of students. We've been working with them for 6 years on an entrepreneur and innovation culture. We have designed a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation. What does that mean? It is not about just coming with that curriculum and then say, go teach. How do you identify a student who has an entrepreneurial mindset? right? It will be in the regular classes. Somebody keeps asking those intriguing questions, and the faculty can identify and say, you know what, I think you should probably pursue a little bit on this also. You have very interesting thoughts. You can actually spin it off as a business. So, which means it starts with the faculty. So, we took the faculties, 400 of them, trained them to be mentors for entrepreneurial mindset for students, and then worked with them to build their entire ecosystem of what happens then. Once you identify a student, then what happens? And research, for research and development, this is for in Faridabad, we are working with a Center for Biotechnology, right? Where we work with the students on sharpening their research area. They all have great ideas. Then we start with applying design thinking framework. We have about 26 different tools that we had come up with, and we had learned and borrowed from others as well, successful ones, right? Like Stanford and IDEO and all. But what kind of impact are you making with your research? How are you changing the life of the end user with this research? And then work backwards to see where do you start. And surprisingly, some of the students get depressed because then they realize that their idea is not all that great, right? They might have gotten through somehow, but then they realize, oh, this is not what exactly I wanted. And we feel happy that we are able to stop them on their trails and help them to go back and relook at their entire research focus itself. And here is another interesting one, friends here. This is with the Indian School of Public Policy in Delhi. How do you design a citizen-friendly policy is for citizens' benefit, right? When we are doing research on startup, there were 126 policy schemes in the country for startups, apparently. And half of the startup, majority of the startups don't even know about all of the 120 plus schemes and policies. Then what good is it, right? Government is doing it with a good intention, but the connection is missing, right, at the last mile. So we are working with them to see how can you make it as a purpose-driven policy design itself. When we are at the policy design, we worked with the startup Tamil Nadu, part of Tamil Nadu government's entity, and help them to design their next 5-year policy itself, applying design thinking. And that design is what the entire periodic table equivalent is what got tabled in the assembly for them to get approval and the budget and all that for next 5 years. And here is another one. As far as academic goes, we had worked with City University of New York fashion technology department to see how do you come up with a sustainable fashion design, right? We keep hearing, okay, for a jeans it takes so much water, and they were showing a video. That's how we got interested. They were showing a video of the next big challenge for the environment is going to be, what do you do with all the garments that never gets recycled? And they are actually getting dumped in the Amazons and the other areas that we don't even know of. Right? It was a big shock. At least for me, it was a big shock. I mean, I'm sure many of you know about it. When I first saw that video, I was like, oh my God. You know, we talk about plastic and other things. That therefore, we are working with them to see how do you come up with that sustainable design for fashion technology. And a few of the other things that we also, academics is our one big focus in terms of doing the design, the thinking approach. Also with corporates, the Times Group, when they wanted an accelerated growth, right, business growth, how do you actually help them shift the focus, right? It's all about shifting the focus from one to another point. And I think rest all the leaders know how to drive this. That's where we still continue to stay with mindset, because it is just that can we help them to shift the focus from one to another. There was one organization we were working with, they were saying innovation does not happen in our organization. And then we worked with them, and then they were all great, accomplished senior leaders, right? A part of the management committee. And one of them came up with, you know what, our problem is not innovation. Our problem is we don't know how to retain the seniors who join the organization. They all leave. So the focus moved from innovation to how do I retain the seniors who come in. Therefore, innovation will automatically happen. And that's what we mean by shifting that focus, right? And designing organizational foresight to see where are we heading. We are the knowledge partner for Indian Oil Corporation. Year on year, we get their regional senior leaders and heads into Delhi, in their institute. We run design thinking session to say, this is what we have planned for next year. And in this case, interestingly, what will stop us from reaching? We all want to jump in because we have the expertise. We all want to jump in and go. Then we work on what will stop me from reaching, right? And it is not one or two things. We actually painfully insist that you should come up with 50 to 75 things that will stop you, right? Then they kind of identify the blind spot. It's all about identifying that blind spots finally. Go-to-market strategy. We worked with Saint-Gobain, the big glass manufacturer. How do you help them to, there are organizations that comes and says, we want to grow 10% next year. And then we are big in terms of 10x growth, which is possible, right? And we applied design thinking to help them to see how will we help them reach 10x growth. Our very own, we have, any of you, it's an open invitation. You happen to be in Chennai, please do let us know. We have the world's first fintech design thinking center, 8012, right? It's about a 35,000 square feet center dedicated for application of design thinking in several areas, right? It'll take you roughly about an hour or so through the center. We'll be privileged to take you through that center to show you how some of these things falls in place properly. And then I started by saying, if design thinking is for problem solving, can I apply it in any problem that we face? We have done leadership pipeline challenge for Lucas TVS. We have their permission to share this, so I'm sharing it here. Where they were facing that challenge, and they reached out to us, and we said, yeah, let's apply design thinking to see how you're going to come up with your leadership pipeline design itself, right? And a lot of blind spots, beautiful blind spots that had come about, which chairman himself then came, Mr. Balaji and the MD Arvind Balaji, they came around and then said, this is really a insightful outcome, right, in terms of identifying the blind spot. So what I'm saying is, no, I don't want to sound like we are there solving everybody's problem. No. As I always say, we are not saying anything that has not been said before, right? And that too in front of accomplished academic leaders. You have been, into this for many, many years and decades, right? But however, based on our experience, we are trying to kind of position that little differently. Therefore, if we can shift that focus from one to another, right? One direction to another direction, and that's it. I think rest, they know how to solve the problem. So like we always say, don't fall in love with the solution. Our mantra is always fall in love with the problem. Don't fall in love with the solution. Solution will happen. Fall in love with the problem. If you stay a little longer with the problem, I think we'll get more clarity, and hopefully we will end up solving a better problem than what is in front of us. And I think that's a journey, right? And finally, this is part of the thinking framework. We call it the 13 musical notes, right? One is the competency part. I started by saying how the expertise can blind us, right? We have to quickly move from skills, expertise to perspective. How can I pull myself out from my expertise to see what else is happening? And that's exactly what helped us to come up with the community development framework, right? What else is happening in the rural area? Why are still, so many people are putting in so much of effort, their time, their money and whatnot. And why are we not seeing this change in leaps and bounds, right? When we did that perspective, we were able to identify blind spots, and we were able to connect to different things. And only then we will come up with great ideas. Classic example is mail order catalog existed for several years in the US. E-commerce portal was also there, and we know Jeff Bezos just connected the two. People love to shop, and they are struggling with manual shopping format. At the same time, online solution is available. Let me connect, and that's it. The way we shop has changed forever now, right? And that's what we are talking about here as a competency quotient. But more importantly, the emotional quotient is what comes in between, right? We call that the frictional forces that can stop us from seeing things right in front of us. It could be the doubt, the conflict of I am right and you are wrong, you are right and I am also right. the anger, fear, and then the ego, not from a philosophical sense, from the point of ego as an I know it all. Let me come and solve this problem. Okay, know what that means. So we all know what that means. So thank you. I'll finish now. This is my last slide, by the way. Okay. Right. And this is where our biggest learning was, right? Intellect Design Arena, the organization I represent, and School of Design Thinking as well. We have been in fintech for nearly 4 decades now. But half the journey we were saying, we know everything. We have worked with so many banks. Then with the journey of design thinking, we took a step back and said, wait a minute, do we really know everything? No, I think our expertise is really coming in between. That's exactly what it is. Our expertise from the competency quotient goes back and gets us into that ego part. Then everything else becomes bad. And finally, the capacity quotient, where as a leader, am I willing to step out of my comfort zone to come up with a different approach to a problem? In other words, the time tested, this is the only way it has been done. This is the only way it will work here. No other way is going to work, here. And that is what we have seen with so many of the corporates that we work with, right? Where they are sitting in a comfort zone and not wanting to try anything else, right? And we have seen many people saying that, you know what, design thinking is not for us. We don't have time for design thinking application and all that. That is where, when the mindset thing comes in, we work with them. So typically we work with them for, let's say, 3 days, right? In a typical corporate thing, it takes about a day and a half to kind of get them to realize that, okay, there is another way to look at this thing, right? Obviously they are experts. So, they've been at it for 2+ decades. And that, once we nudge them to get out of that, then they are able to see a lot more options in front of them, opportunities in front of them, and possibilities. It's all about looking at possibilities, right? So, like I said, just to recap, our journey of design thinking, when we stumbled, fell down, got up, dusted, started reworking, hit refresh again, we split design thinking into 2 bits. Design the thinking first, right? The mindset part. We're using all of these frameworks that we saw, the decap, the sepia, val, 3 laws, and all that, and the blind spots and whatnot. Therefore, I will see things differently. I'll see it with a different lens. Then obviously comes the process. We are not saying no. Then comes thinking the design as in whatever number of steps you're going to take to come up with a particular design and whatnot. Yeah. Okay. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. Since the topic is sustainable, and we heard a lot from all of you experts in the morning in the panels, how it is, and we thought we will add our bit in terms of our experience. How do you come up with a sustainable design for anything that we are approaching? Therefore, all the efforts that we all put in, because we all want the right thing, right? Environment safe, sustainable, get the rural India to be up and getting better. All that, we all mean the same thing, but our bit here a little bit of a pitch to see how this can also help to add to that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure. Like I said, it's a privilege to be in front of all of you to share our experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for that impactful session.
Sure.
We now request Professor Rachna Chattopadhyay, Dean Academics, IMI Kolkata, to kindly come up on stage and present a token of our gratitude to Dr. Rathinavel.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hopefully, I kept you awake. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Our next session is the CEO's panel discussion. We have some enriching events lined up for you concurrent with this session. Scholars and faculty members presenting their papers are requested to proceed to their respective track rooms as per the schedule. Those attending the second part of the workshop, Master the Art of Publishing, are requested to move to room 301. Participants who have registered for the workshop, Case Teaching and Writing, are requested to proceed to room 302. We will now take a minute to set up the stage for CEO's panel.
insightful perspectives from industry leaders. This session brings together visionary leaders from some of India's most dynamic and influential organizations. In this section of the panel discussion, the eminent CEOs across India will delve into the theme resilient value chains in a fragmented world, technology, trade, and the path to net zero.
I would now request all our distinguished panelists and esteemed moderator for this session to kindly come up on the stage and take their seats. Mr. Ambarish Das Gupta, founder and senior partner, Intuary Consulting. Ms. Shivani Bagaria, Director, L. Madanlan Aluminium Limited. Mr. Subroto Bakchi, Chief Operating Officer and Senior Managing Director, Alien Group. Professor Chandan Chaudhary, Professor of Practice, Operations Management and Information Systems at the Indian School of Business. We now request Professor Sonia Agarwal, Senior Faculty of OB and HR, IMI Kolkata, to kindly come up on stage and felicitate our distinguished panelists and our esteemed moderator. I would now request Professor Sonia Agarwal to kindly felicitate Mr. Ambarish Das Gupta. Ms. Shivani Bagaria. Mr. Subroto Bakchi. Professor Chandan Chaudhary, our moderator for this panel. May I now request the dignitaries on the stage to kindly come forward for a group photograph. Thank you, ma'am. Here, I would like to mention that the detailed profiles of the members of this panel, as well as those of the other panels and events of the 19th ISDSI Global Conference 2025, are available in Profiles of Eminence and can be accessed through the ISDSI Global website and QR code displayed on the screens right now. You're requested to scan the QR code now to access the Profiles of Eminence. Now, we hand over the session to our moderator, Professor Chandan Chaudhary, to steer the panel forward.
Yeah, good afternoon to all of you. We are actually going to have this discussion, and it is going to be a topic which directly impacts all of us. And before I ask my first question from Ambarish Das Gupta, I just thought I will say a few words about the topic, right? So our topic is resilient value chains in a fragmented world. First part of the theme. I want to give you one example, which is from the southern part of the country. We were doing a study which was on understanding the impact of the fourth industrial revolution on the textile sector. So that was the sector, textile sector. So we went to a place called Madurai, and we heard the story of that company that they import cotton from United States because their customer tells them you have to import the cotton from United States. So they used to do that. They would convert the cotton into yarn in a city called Madurai. And that yarn they used to export to Germany. And in Germany, yarn used to be converted into fabric. And that fabric will be exported to Austria, where they would do coloring and printing. The final product will be exported to Africa. So you have America, you have Asia, you have Europe, and you have Africa. All these continents in one single value chain. They were talking about how do you create digital continuity across this complex value chain. And now things have totally changed. Let me tell you again from the same sector, example of another company which used to procure yarn, procure cotton, convert it to yarn, sell yarn within the country, export yarn from India, and the final product, which they used to make primarily in the home textile sector, they used to export it to United States, 85% of them. And today, US has imposed tariff, and the company's product is no more viable. So this is some background. I would go to my first question, which is from Ambarish Dasgupta. And my question is, in a world which is becoming increasingly deglobalized, supply chain is becoming fragmented, what are your views on the need for redesigning supply chain? That's one. Secondly, the challenges in redesigning supply chain. And it'll be great if you give some examples.
Thank you, Chandan. I think by asking me this question and me attempting to answer this, firstly, I'm possibly violating an advice that Mark Twain gave, that he said that when you do not know a subject, you at least keep mum, but why open your mouth to confirm that you are a complete ignorant? So I'll still try. This geopolitical issue that we are all now referring to and fragmenting the whole world's economy, and therefore the supply chain of a corporate, is nothing new. It was there, but the impact possibly is more profound depending on 5-6 leaders, depending on which side of the bed they will be waking up in the morning and their moods and decisions that they are taking in this world. We are now having more discussions on the geopolitical situation, on the corporates' performance. As a result, even there are work being done by consulting organizations right now, which is like a country's foreign policy. They are now working on corporate foreign policy. So there is a new area of work that consultants are doing, that working out a corporate foreign policy, which we are also doing. See, at this point in time, the subject that is getting hugely discussed, people are trying to understand is, as you also mentioned, is the tariff. Now see, we are all knowing about the US tariff 50%, which is basically adding the few other components, becomes 58.2% on any of the Indian product. Alongside that, how many such trade agreements are now getting discussed? It could be bilateral, it could be free trade, it could be preferential trade agreements. We are having CETA, we are having with UK. So CETA, CEPA, a trade agreement going on with European Union, trade agreement going on with the ASEAN countries, Discussions going on with Peru, New Zealand, Chile, Australia just concluded. Discussion happening with Japan. Now, multiple trade agreements happening, determining the flow of goods prices. On top of that, we are also having a rules related to the country of origin, the carota rule, to bypass sometimes some of the tariff rules, or making or giving some preferences also. Like Europe, the UK trade agreements has recently allowed a huge amount of concession if some 10 to 20% of the product could be brought from some other country with whom they have preferential trade agreements. This is now making the people going back to their supply chain designing and trying to see that how either the adversities or the positives being thrown, how can that be factored into both the demand side as well as on the supply side? So both on the inbound side as well as on the outbound side. I was recently having a discussion with a vice chairman of, not naming, one of the largest telecom companies in the country right now. So I was telling him that, look, it will be improper for me to come to you as a consultant to say how your growth will be coming in, because you know at the whatever stage you are right now, how your profit will come in. What do you need to do to structure your organization, or whom to buy or what to sell? So give me a subject which is still keeping you awake at the night at this point in 2025, where I can do at least some work for you. So he said that if you can make me understand the geopolitical vulnerabilities and create anything that will help me gather much more market side, much more market insight in a structured way, that would really be helpful. So I also asked him, you can buy or you can hire any of the leading economists or political scientists on this subject by the amount of money that you have your organization. So why do you really need a consulting firm to come and do that for you? So all will be lining up here for you to give you a speech on the country relationship or even their future prediction. He said, look, that's true. I'm actually doing that. And not that I'm not spending money. I'm spending millions of rupees on buying their advices and all that. What's not happening is the scholarly treatment that we are doing on that subject in the boardroom is not percolating down to the operational level of the people, and whatever we are learning there, whatever databases we are actually buying or hiring or subscribing, the information being captured there in a systematic way is not flowing down to the operational level of the supply chain, or to the operational level of the market creation, or to the operational level of any merger or any acquisition or any capital flow that I think of. Now, my challenge is that how do I bring it down? Thereafter, to answer to the next part of your question, that is it now going to the supply chain redesigning? Yes, it is. And what people are trying, though I'm again saying it's not a fail-safe, foolproof thing, that while supply chain was considered as a kind of a linear thing, that maybe my supplier, like this, there was, we call it now scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, the various levels of the tiers of the supply chain, is now taking a shape of a network topology, where the countries are the nodes, the linkages, the path, the logistics path is the linkage between the country. We are ascertaining, or a model is ascertaining, the risk of any of the nodes, or even the risk of any of the linkages, because we saw the Red Sea path, we saw the various other paths sometimes, even the links are also having some risk. Depending on weightages are how important that particular node or that particular linkage is to the product that I sell or the product that I buy, to my movements of the goods. And therefore, typically as a network, topology network, as any telecom or any electronic people here will be knowing, that when we design that, we actually keep on changing the weightage of that node depending on whatever futuristic market intelligence one can gather. Change the weightage of the risk factor of the linkages also, and keep on continuously designing the new network and keep it agile, so that if tomorrow something happens, how I can cut this link and move to the next link. But to answer you, therefore, the other question which you that, what are the challenges of that? While he may sound mathematically very solid, I capture all the data. I can manage to do some kind of prediction on what's going to happen in between the two countries and all that. The challenge here is that it is only possible for big firms because it is the amount of money that I will be spending on having such contingency linkage path or some contingency nodes in my whole network. The amount of capital that I will be deploying to create such an agile or such an alternate network topology in the supply chain is a huge determinant related to the probability of that particular adverse event happening or not. This is not possible for small and medium enterprises to deploy that kind of capital to protect them against that. And therefore, one of the things that we are suggesting or we are sometimes saying is distance between the supplier and me, my company, or to the customer is directly proportional to the risk. As a result, one of the approach, like you must have seen in yesterday or day before yesterday, or maybe in 2 days, this cosmetics company, Coty, I mean, they are now bringing in their entire production closer to the country. So the distance is considered as something which is directly proportional to the risk. And therefore, one concept that is coming up is nearshoring, that you bring up your supplier base, your manufacturing base, your warehouses as close as possible, because it seems that the market intelligence from there nearer to your base could be much more, and it will be much easier for you to control that rather than actually taking it too far away. So that's one aspect which organizations are now. The other one, like typically an industry that we were talking to in terms of this geopolitical risk and fragmented thing on the paint industry. Recently, there was a seminar by the CII for which the research and all that was done by us, and we were presenting. We were seeing that how much of this import substitution you actually can do. But that import substitution through an Indianized product also requires a massive amount of capital expenditure, because sometimes there are many materials that you will possibly not be able to produce in the country at a very low cost. And this maybe during the discussion, we will come to the rare earth and the semiconductor and many other critical components which India does not produce. But if we try to produce, the cost of producing that may actually offset to some extent the enhanced tariff price also. So it is better to give the tariff than possibly try to do it internally, because the cost will be so much. So yes, summarizing that, this is a problem which everybody is now trying to address. This is no more an operational problem. There's a huge amount of boardroom and operational problem integrated together. Technology is being deployed intensely, AI driven supply chain designing, AI driven predictive algorithm for what may happen in the market or in the country tomorrow. So all those are coming in. So it's really going to the redesigning of the supply chain, but definitely there are challenges related to the money or related even to many other factors.
Yeah, great. I think you got some very interesting insights. I thought that people like us who had a lot of interest in supply chain, probably our job will be a problem. But looking at kind of opportunities which are coming up just because of this disrupted world, where how do you create a resilient, sustainable supply chain has become a critical issue. I think people with interest and background of supply chain, or those of you who are student, if you acquire knowledge on supply chain in the context of what's happening today in the world, your market value will be very high. I just wanted to share with you that, for almost 30 years, we spoke about offshoring, primarily to cut cost. And then we moved to, as Ambarish mentioned, nearshoring, because you wanted your sourcing and supply chain to be as close to you as possible to reduce the lead time. And then people realized that, well, concepts like Make in America or Made in China or even Make in India, people started talking about what you call inshoring. You bring back your supply chain to your own country. Now, a very interesting concept started. It was promoted in 2022 by somebody called Yellen Janet, and she introduced a concept called friend shoring, that you must talk about supply chain from the perspective of friend shoring. So bring your supply chain to countries that you can trust. So the whole problem has become really very, very complex. So my question to Subrata Bakshi is from a slightly, I want you to look at this entire problem of fragmented supply chain from the perspective of human capital. So over to you.
Thank you, Chandan, and thank you for inviting me to give a talk on this. And good afternoon, everybody. Well, I don't deal with products. I deal with human beings as a consultant, which is talent. And similar to what's happening on the side of goods and services, particularly goods today, physical goods that are getting imported, exported, and getting severely disrupted because of tariffs, because of wars that are happening in pockets and other things. Talent, and I'll talk about in India, which is in some ways getting impacted too, which is falling out of some of the tariff rules, and I'll talk about US. Visa is becoming a challenge. The software companies has been historically sending resources all over the world to support, and as a technology capital of the world, India has emerged as a dominant player on the IT market that is also setting changes. The other emerging trend that is happening today is, apart from being the technology capital of the world, India is becoming and has become the accounting and taxation hub globally. And there I see the talent pool that is available. It is getting disrupted in the sense the employers today are not concerned with what qualifications, which institute you come from. They are more concerned with the skills because they are averse to investing in you and giving you a learning curve. And I see a lot of young students over here, and that is going to be a severely disrupting factor, whether you're in accounting, whether you're in IT, or whether you go into business. Knowing, having skill sets, it's a skill issue that is very critical for you to be employed in any organization and to succeed. If you are in the accounting profession, you should know what accounting software to use, because companies do not want to invest so much in you so that you have a long learning curve. Therefore, apart from your theoretical education that you are getting in your business schools and colleges and universities, it is very important for you to learn the tools of the trade that makes you and this is disruption. This has not been there for the last 10 years. It's really disrupting. If I give you a statistics, we are a country with 1.4 billion people, and I, being a chartered accountant, there are only 300,000 chartered accountants in India as of today. So it's a huge skill gaps, and there is a huge demand. You need not be a chartered accountant. If you know your basics and if you know the tools, you are highly employable. The second important factor that is coming up is communication. As students, you need to know how to communicate. Communication does not mean ability to speak in Oxonian English or writing. It's ability to listen, ability to understand what your customer is asking, ability to promptly, succinctly, and directly respond to the customer needs, ability to acknowledge your errors, apologize if required, move on, and give the best services. Communication is absolutely critical, particularly in service sector. I'm not saying it's not important in other industries, but definitely in services sector or in a consulting field. So that is the second disruption that's going to impact. The other important thing, which is very important for young fellow audience over here, is being curious. And you will have to take it for granted that throughout your career, maybe next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it's a constant learning curve that you'll be on. And if you're not curious, because the rate at which the technology is changing, rate at which the disruptions are happening, and it's unpredictable disruptions. So you need to stay very much current. Therefore, curiosity, learning, and ability to communicate, learning the skills. If I give you an example, India had hundreds and thousands of developers. Now with AI, with no code, zero code, low code environment, that skill set is no longer relevant. If you do not anticipate that and prepare for it, this is going to disrupt your personal lives. Therefore, it is very important, because whether you're in business or in service, we're all dealing with people. At the end of the day, we haven't achieved singularity. But at this stage, it's very important to stay current. India is going to be talent hub. Gone are the days of labor arbitrage. It's going to be technology arbitrage that's going to determine the future of the country. And technology arbitrage does not mean the ability to write algorithms, because AI can write algorithms for you, but the ability to use technology for the advantage of the business and to your advantage is absolutely critical. And this is where severe disruptions are happening. And this is where supply chain of talent, human capital is fundamental to any business. So, Chandan, that's where the current environment is.
Right. So we'll move to Shivani. Shivani, you are the third generation entrepreneur. I want to understand from you your own story of your business, how all this circularity and your type of raw material that you use, how the whole business you see getting challenged, disrupted, and what are the things that you think we can learn from your business?
Thank you, Professor, for the question, and good afternoon to everyone. So I work in an aluminium company, which is based out of Kolkata itself. And we've been doing this for about 50 years now. But we've been seeing a lot of changes of late, and it's a very relevant topic to talk about right now, which is the volatility, sustainable supply chains. So aluminium by itself is an extremely sustainable material. It is 100% recyclable. But what is happening is that we have not yet developed, as in India, we've not developed a very circular economy for it. If we want to talk about statistics, then in all over the world, 65% of the aluminium which is generally made is recycled, whereas in India it is just about 30 to 35%. This has a lot to do with the demand itself, consumption, let's just put it that way, the consumption of aluminium products as as recyclable material, that is also quite less in a place like India. Statistically, like this is a report from just last year. Indians per capita, they will consume about 2.5 kgs of aluminium. But in all over the world, like the global average is 11 to 13 kgs. So for a company like mine, we tend to we have been importing aluminium raw material from countries like generally Southeast Asia, Europe, depending on the fares. We're not getting a very robust supply within India itself. So we do that because we are not getting a very regular supply chain. We are not getting good prices as well over here in India. So that is something which is an opportunity with, generally in the metal market, not just in aluminium. But that is one opportunity which is waiting to be tapped at this point, because it is something which will actually drive a lot of sustainability, circularity in the near future. And the demand is definitely there for aluminium, because there are like, you know, EVs coming up, lot of different products which are using these types of recyclable materials that's coming up. So it is just something that we should work on as an economy. Apart from that, other challenges, other things which sir asked me to mention here. Generally, we were like our current strategy is near sourcing, what Amrish sir and Chandan sir had mentioned. We do work with a lot of countries in Southeast Asia and Europe, like I mentioned, which have the ports are nearby, so we are able to get it. But it is just something that I truly believe that as like Indian startups, a lot of them are coming up in getting the raw material sourced. Other than that, one big challenge is the volatility in the market itself. So as we do trade in the commodity market, that is in the uh, aluminum commodities are generally sourced through the London Metal Exchange rates. So generally, you know, in the last over the last 20 years, it was quite stable. But in the last 2 years, it has really become volatile, and it is just uh, very hard to maintain right now as a business. And we do have to use that metric because we import. So it is just something that you know, it drives up the price. It is very difficult for us to also work with our vendor partners due to that, because things are constantly changing and things are just you know, you're not able to set a proper price to it. But yes, of course, we have to manage. So this volatility can be overcome if we have robust supply chains and more sustainable value systems within India itself. So yes.
Yeah. So I think, you know, this is a very interesting observation. If you look at yeah, please. Yeah.
Particularly when you're dealing with commodities, physical commodities, another, I won't say constraint, one of the important factors is your shipping. Your transportation is also very, very critical, because that industry, if I take shipping, it's a completely disconnected, and it has its own way of dealing with demand supply. So today, in a world which I won't say fragmented, is very complex, the various industry segments, when they try to work together, but they have their own world, the connectivity of industry becomes very, very difficult. If I take the example of the aluminum industry, you have a manufacturing sector, which is its own way of working and capital. You have the commodity market, which has its own way of working. Then you have the physical movement of goods. Another allied thing is port. The port business is another critical thing. So balancing these industries as one whole component is more of an art, though it's a science. It's more of an art. And I was talking to Shivani, is how do you, if you import in foreign currency and you sell in rupee in today's world when rupee is falling, how do you manage your finance? So you have to be really, really prudent on how you hedge your commodity, how you hedge your currency, and how you hedge your market risks that are there. So it's not a simple solution, and that adds to the complexity. And in a developing world like us, we have high taxes.
Yeah, maybe, I would move to Ambarish. Uh, a lot of discussion happening on tariff, and tariff is something which is visible, but barriers are often not visible. So I would like you to make some comments on tariff versus barriers. That's number one. Number two, if you look at our government is genuinely keen to accelerate the growth of micro, small, medium enterprises. I can tell you that whenever I have discussion with secretaries or ministers or policymakers, they're genuinely interested to accelerate the growth of micro, small, medium enterprises. They have several hundreds of schemes. But at a ground level, export of micro, small, and medium enterprises from 2018-19 to until now, it has been coming down. So it has come down almost from 50% to 45.57%. So Ambarish, I have two questions. One is tariff and barrier. And if you could also relate to this micro, small, medium enterprises, if they want to export, how they need to look at these two big variables, that is tariff, other is barriers.
Yes, I mean, of course, in addition to the tariff, there are multiple other barriers, and those barriers, cumulative or aggregated impact could be far more than the tariff that is being discussed. So a little elaborate answer to that possibly will be starting with the concept that a term that World Economic Forum introduced called polycrisis. They said that the crisis is not coming today from any single direction. So they introduced that any corporates will now have to work on polycrisis, a crisis coming from multiple areas, which includes, and if we define the 6 categories of the broad crisis under the pastel framework, the crisis can come from politics, which could be geopolitics or within the country politics. Polycrisis, second dimension is economics, which is more related to the geoeconomics and economics within the country. Then social. I'll explain and come back in context to the non-tariff, all these things. Then technology, environment, and legal. So PESTEL. P, we are discussing very much about the geopolitics, trade agreements, sanctions, China suddenly saying that this Nexperia semiconductor cannot be exported further, creating a major crisis, 17 rare earth elements being possessed by countries not wanting to give it out to anyone else, and therefore creating a crisis. So all those are geopolitical kind of things, could be related to sanctions or tariff. When we come to the other aspects of the non-tariff situation, the non-tariff barrier of working with a country, the second one, if we consider the economics, currency plays a massive role. The determinant of the currency, the strength of the currency, that has a huge impact on determining, which has nothing to do possibly, or has something to do, but indirectly connected, but no direct connection between the tariff. But therefore, the decision on the capital flow, the decision of investing in a country, the decision of any investor, like a private equity or a venture capital or any investment banker investing in a country, not so much to the tariff, but to the strength of the currency in those countries. And therefore, the economic situation of the country, the various factors of that economic situation, which is also including the Human Development Index and all this, which is nothing to do with tariff. The third component that we're seeing outside tariff, which is playing a major role in terms of any export or import that we do, is the S component, the social. The social is the fairness in terms of the social inclusivity. The young people like Shivani and others, they are now so much conscious about the various of the factors like this activism, inclusive activism of the various genders, fairness to all people, child work, gender related fairness, any other thing, LGBTQ fairness, so much of things which are we are hearing, which possibly of my age somebody was not used to, that a product can be shunned or a product can be accepted, always not on quality and price, but on the activism related compliances that they have actually done, which comes under the S dimension of the ESG mainly. Sometimes it is also considered under the CSR dimension, as a result of which, even today, SEBI, under their listing obligatory disclosure requirement, is asking organizations, not all at this point in time, but the top 1,000 market value, market cap organization, that it is not just your compliance or it is not just your regulatory or statutory compliances that we'll do in terms of disclosure. You actually also have to disclose your compliance or your activities, if not always compliance, to the CSR and to the environment's S dimension. That's playing a huge role. Say, for example, if I am buying carpets, and by that you may possibly guess which country I am referring to, from a country who is not obeying the children labor or the gender related general acts or the principles being followed all around the world, and that same carpet I'm now trying to US, I will have a huge problem in terms of that. So that is a non-tariff major issue now playing. Then the second one, of course, is the technological maturity of the country with whom I am going to work and my maturity as against that country. Because there are so many other DPP Act and compliances that one actually now needs to go through. Their level of technology maturity and whether I'm interfaceable, whether I have that kind of maturity to really be compatible with their systems or with the customers, the kind of technology or kind of user friendliness or access that they need, whether I really have that or not. Or now come the other question, non-tariff. My work is dependent on, say, some AI, quantum computer, semiconductor, or some rare earth element. That, or I have a huge amount of data center driven work, energy consumption in my data center. Is it compliant to that country's energy statutes and rules and obligations? Possibly nothing to do that way with a tariff, but it's the non-tariff thing. I missed one dimension under the economics thing when I mentioned within the country, Chandan. I mean, you know this very well, and students also. The logistics management index, the LMI cost of any country, has to stay within some 3% of the product or the 3% of the GDP. In India, that LMI is somewhere close to 7 or 9%. As a result, the Honorable Prime Minister's office worked a lot on reducing that LMI part, the movement of the goods cost within the country, and the easiness of working from the taxation or statutory procedures. That also comes under that E dimension, has also nothing to do with the tariff part of it. The last or very important one, the environmental part. The environment is no more at this point in time related to some well-being, well-intention, or something related to philanthropy, or all we're saying that save the planet and all that. It's not just a well-intended kind of, it's not just a matter of just an intention. It has now become like the CBAM. When you are working with anything in UK or in Europe, the CBAM is a rule that they have applied, the carbon border adjustment mechanism. You have to comply with that CBAM thing. Otherwise, it shoots up the prices by another 30-35%. And we have to be compliant with their CBAM. This has nothing to do with tariff. Implicit within all the trade agreements, you will see implicit, not explicitly. Maybe the tariff apparently is looking at zero tariff, bilateral trade tariff between the two countries. But then if you have to comply with that CBAM, automatically the price of your good goes up by another 20-30% if you have to do that with that euro. And also when you talk about that friendly shoring, that also is now not working anymore. The reason being, I may be having a very good friendly relationship with the next country. and I'm getting manufacturing done in that X country, even close to my country, a very excellent relationship. If that country's product is having any kinds of CBAM violation, even the country of origin rule sometimes will not protect me when I'm trying to get something from them and send it to Europe or to UK under the CBAM. And then the other major non-tariff issues that comes, and India somehow is being to an extent alleged about that, and many other countries also, is the L dimension, the legal. The legal procedural complexity or the simplicity that way. All the statutory rules of compliances, how much time we take, and what is the predictability of those statutory compliances, that creates also another major impact. So if we consider leaving aside the tariff part of it from the E dimension, the other five, the E, S, T, E, L, can sometimes add up to a significant more complexity than what we are only discussing, which is tariff, tariff, and tariff.
Yeah, great. So what I would like to do now, leave next couple of minutes for question answer. Any question that you may have, one or two questions, then we conclude. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a yellow sheet that we should complete in next 5 minutes. So you have you can have one or two questions. Anyone got a question? Anyone got a question? If you got a question, somebody got to give the mic. Yeah, please. Anyone, can you give him a mic?
So how do business owners, entrepreneurs look at the compliance burden, or so many compliances that are required? Is it good? Is there a positive aspect, or is this just leading to more procedures and more? I mean, how do you look at it holistically from a long-term perspective?
Yeah. Subrata, would you like to take it?
See, there is no question today, particularly if you're a public company, cost of compliance is going up. It's getting very, very complex, particularly if you're dealing globally. Well, is it good? Is it bad? Only time will tell. But for any business, at the end of the day, it's your top line, your bottom line, and return on investments, which the shareholders and the investors will look at. It's a tightrope walking. It's not easy. There's no straitjacket answer for it. So, businesses are going through, particularly global businesses, are going through a lot of challenges that is there. Just one point which I want to add, Ambarish, to your thing, some of the unknown things that are there is global taxation. Transfer pricing is one of the most complex things globally that companies that trade with it's extremely complex. It's extremely onerous. So yes, my view is cost of compliance is going up. Private companies to a large extent can get away with some of the disclosure requirements. SEBI, your SEC, PCOB, tons and tons of disclosure. And this is my personal view. Does it add any value? It to some extent brings about investor confidence. But I believe there is a over information and over disclosure things which people will hardly look at.
Okay, 30 seconds. Yeah, any question? Yeah. Can someone give a mic?
This is to ma'am. Ma'am, you have, say, for example, some order of aluminium, which you need to import. So in a other way, you're exporting dollars. With the fluctuation of oil prices, so your freight rate is increasing.
Yes.
So it is fluctuating.
Yes.
And in another way, this Indian rupees is almost the bottom. So how you mitigate? You have already in one side aluminium which you have ordered, but at the same time which you have to deliver, you have the cost of the aluminium is high. So how you actually this balance?
So that is business, sir. But yes,
Means
like
to hate. How you hate?
what happens is generally we are working with major steel players. So what I actually do is basically I will import the raw material and I will process it to which is and the final product, that is notch bars ingots. They are used as deoxidizing agents in steel companies. That is our main line of business. We have a couple of other lines as well, but we basically have a reverse auction process, which goes on in companies like Tata Steel and Jindal and all. Reverse auction happens, so the prices do get adjusted that way. But coming to even the previous question that sir had asked about how compliance is very difficult, like how does it look like in reality and in real businesses? The problem is that it's very difficult to keep up. Like there's so many things happening, there's so many changes in global compliances. That is where the problem lies. And in terms of even the reverse auction process, the prices do get adjusted, but obviously they will also have their own metrics and their own compliances to do. So it's very difficult for us who are like the people in between to manage this. This is what I meant.
All right, so I'd like to hand over to the organizers, 4:29. So we have 1 minute. We give it back to you.
Thank you to our esteemed panelists and our moderator for this session.
We now request conference patron Professor Tirthankar Nag, Dean Research, IMI Kolkata, to kindly come up on stage and present a token of gratitude to our distinguished panelists. Mr. Amrish Das Gupta. Miss Shivani Bagaria. Mr. Shubroto Bakchi. We now request conference patron Professor Tirthankar Nag to kindly present a token of gratitude to our moderator, Professor Chandan Chaudhary.
Thank you, sir. As we conclude this session, on behalf of IMI Kolkata, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished guests, panelists, and moderator. Your presence and support have made this session truly meaningful. With deep appreciation, we look forward to carrying the spirit of collaboration and learning into the days ahead. May I please ask the dignitaries to kindly take their seats in the audience.
We are setting up the stage for the next panel. The next panel will start in 2 minutes.
फोटो ले रहा है हम आ ही नहीं रहे पीछे कहाँ पे पहुंच गए तू बोल रही है ना बिफोर प्रोसीड यहाँ से तो बोलेगी ना वेलकम बैक वेलकम बैक कहीं